There are several questions that arose out of our story of last week. And those questions were, what is it that's been ever present in our life that disallowed us from becoming for any great time seduced by being something, a this or a that? And the second question was, where are we when everything is the same and nothing is the same? Our sensory awareness tells that the sound of the birds is still the sound of the birds. The smell of the grass is still the smell of the grass, and so on. But our experience of it is totally different, and we cannot go back to experiencing it the way it was before. So in an endeavor to answer these questions, there's been several stories told about books. Now when we hear the word books, it connotes knowledge for us. And it can be said that there are three kinds of knowledge. There are the intellectual knowledge that's been gained from study, reading and so forth. There's experiential knowledge, experiences that have wrought emotions that, like intellectual knowledge, has been accumulative. Even experiences of the states of being is accumulated knowledge. And then thirdly, there's real knowledge. Knowledge that arises unbidden, is not accumulative, truths that are present in a moment. So, looking at the meaning of books, which connote knowledge, how can this lead us possibly to being able to answer these questions? So there's yet another story about a book. We'll see when we add it to our pot what it brings for us as we attempt to answer these questions. Now everyone knew that there was a book that contained the knowledge and the mysteries and the secrets of the ages. And it was also known that this book could only come into the possession of those who had arrived at a certain level of purity and understanding. But it is told that there was a certain sorcerer, a certain magician, who by his nefarious practices had been able to learn who it was who had attained to this state of purity and understanding. And he had also come to know where this book was secreted. It is said in a dark cave in a certain place. So this sorcerer planned to be able, as he knew that this was the only way he could acquire this book, was through this being who had attained this state. So he came to get to know who this was, and he devised a plan as to how he could acquire this book. So, unbeknownst to this pure being, the sorcerer cast a spell on him, which gave him the appearance of having a disease somewhat like leprosy. But this man had never been ill in his life, so he could not understand what had happened to him. But of course, he had to seek out a physician who might be able to heal him. But as was the way of the sorcerer, he supplanted himself as this physician. So when our pure man came to him, it was the sorcerer who was able to say to him, yes, you have a disease that can be passed on to others. It is better that you go far, far away so that you do not come into the aegis of those who could catch this disease. And the sorcerer named the place to which he could go, which was isolated, but happened to be close to the cave in which it was said that the book was secreted. So the pure man went to the cave and suffered terribly from the isolation, the aloneness, and the terrible things that beset his body from this seeming disease. But then it so happened that the sorcerer came by, now having another form, the masks, of course, that sorcerers are able to place. And he came to our pure man, and he said, I can cure you of your disease. But if I do, you must repay me by obtaining for me a book which is placed in a cave nearby here. So, of course, the pure man, having suffered so greatly, his isolation and his disease, agreed to do this. So he was directed to the cave after the sorcerer had said incantations over him, and seemingly his disease was taken away from him. So our pure man went into the cave, and indeed he found the book in a crevice in the rocks. Now the sorcerer had said to him, you don't read this book because that book belongs to me. You are only to bring it to me. But the pure man in the cave, of course, could not resist opening up this book. And as he became more and more engrossed in its revelations, he began to realize that there was something not quite right with the interaction that had taken place between the sorcerer and himself. Because why was it that this sorcerer was not able to come into the cave himself and obtain the book for himself? But the book itself revealed the answer to this question. So when the pure man took the book and came out of the cave where the sorcerer awaited him with his hand out saying, "Give me, give me, give me the book," the pure man said, "No, this book is not for you." And the sorcerer became very, very angry. And he said, "If you don't give me the book, I will curse you." But instead, seemingly unbidden, from nowhere, came to the pure man the words that were spoken, that immediately caused the sorcerer to lose all his power. That power never to return to him again. Now the pure man took the book with him, and it remained with him for the rest of his life, bringing forth knowledge, unbidden, needing not to be read or studied, but in his possession. What does this book symbolize for us in the place where we now find ourselves? The accumulation of our intellectual knowledge, the experiences of our states of being, no longer relevant in the moments that are no longer moments, but a never-ending, boundless, limitless state of presence, awareness. What does this book represent for us and tell us, confirm for us?
It's God's realization.
The answers to these questions.